Hello friends, so today's video is going to be the Finally Fall book tag, and I feel the title of this tag so much this year. I have been waiting for fall. I've been willing it to be fall by wearing sweaters, even though it's still over 100 degrees where I live. But I am so glad that it's officially fall, at least in the part of the world where I live. Jumping into the tag itself though, the first question says, in fall, the air is crisp and clear. Name a book with a vivid setting. I grabbed a few books off the shelf because I think all of these have very, very vivid settings. So I'm going to start with one that every single time I would talk about this book, I would talk about its setting, and that would be The Queen of Blood or the Queens of Renthia series. This is an adult fantasy trilogy. It does have a companion novel. I haven't yet read the companion yet, but this is set in a world where they live in the forest, and they very much need the forest to thrive because they live within the treetops. They have a whole zipline transportation system, and the setting itself is not just a place for them to live and to navigate through, but it kind of literally is alive through something called spirits. So the spirits within the forest are all different shapes and sizes, and they have two main instincts, which is to protect the forest, but also to destroy anything that threatens the forest, and therefore mankind, in living in the trees and in using things from the forest in order to live, they have kind of caught the attention of spirits. And the only way to keep mankind safe from these spirits is to have a woman who is the strongest magic user, who is the queen, and she kind of holds the spirits in check through her magic. I think that the setting in this one is absolutely fascinating. It's very magical, very not whimsical. It's very dark and bleak at times and can be extremely violent, but in general, a fantastic, fantastic setting. I'm finding that most of the ones that have great settings, they don't have great settings for good reasons. I'm not wanting to go to the places. It's more that it makes me feel how awful the settings are. I think that's very true for The Bear and the Nightingale. This one might be the most vivid of most books I've read. Nothing has ever made me feel the danger of the cold and the winter like this book has. This book is kind of dreadful, but it's a sign of fantastic writing. I mean, the months and months ahead of time, people are freaking out about the coming winter, and people start to starve, and they're having to ration food, and you don't want to go outside because you might get frostbite or you might freeze to death. And the way I don't know what it is. When I hear people describe vivid settings, in my mind I'm like, there's never anything that can make me uncomfortable to that extreme. But this one did. It did it so well, so this one for sure. And then Spinning Silver also has a fantastic wintry setting, which is not, quite in line with this being a fall themed video. But to answer the question, this one also has a very vivid setting. It too recognizes the danger of the winter, but I would say this one feels much more magical. It feels very much like a fae story, which it is, and it's kind of the darker, grim fairy tale feel. It is a retelling, so that helps. And I think that the author, Naomi Novik, just captured all of that perfectly. This is one of my favorite books from this year. I also just absolutely loved this book in general. So if you're looking for a good, cold, atmospheric read, but not one that makes you feel like you're starving and freezing to death, then this one's great. The next question says that nature is beautiful but also dying. Name a book that is beautifully written but also deals with heavy topics like loss or grief. A book that I think is very beautifully written would be Lancelot. This is one that I mentioned in a video where I was talking about fantasy with beautiful prose, beautiful writing. It has stunning writing, but when somebody or something doesn't make it, it just hits so hard. I almost cried at certain things that have to do with loss and grief in this story. They were just so well written, and I went back and reread those passages, and they hit very hard. The next question says, fall is back to school season. Share a nonfiction book that taught you something new. I'll go with Evicted for this one by Matthew Desmond. This is actually really relevant, at least where I live right now. And also just in general with everything that happened last year and all of the financial difficulties that a lot of people have had. It shows you so well how horrible eviction is and what it does to a person, what it does to them mentally, how desperate it makes them, how your entire life kind of can just fall apart when you don't have a place to live, how you are unable to concentrate on anything else, especially if you have children. It's extremely well documented as well. Matthew Desmond lived in very difficult circumstances to get all of the research that he could. And he kind of just was an observer to a lot of different people facing eviction. And I cannot recommend this book enough. It is so powerful, but it's powerful in how well it just shows you the reality of things. A lot of times things that I think a lot of us aren't even aware of. The next question says, in order to keep warm, it's good to spend some time with the people we love. Name a fictional family, household, or friend group that you'd like to be a part of. I'm trying to have different answers than I had in previous years because, of course, everybody loves Bridge 4 or like the crew from Mistborn. So I'm going to go with one that it's not different from what I say a lot this year, but I couldn't use this book to answer this question in previous years because I read this book this year, and that would be The Poison Song. This is the third and final book in the Winnowing Flame trilogy. So I talked basically nonstop about Ninth Reign, and then I read the second and third books this year, and for a while there I was talking about them basically nonstop, and they're so good. They have that kind of found family feel to them, the way our characters come together, and they bicker, but they're kind of trying to fight for the greater good and sort of lift each other up while also constantly mocking each other. And it's amazing. I love this series so much. You've, I'm sure, heard me talk about it, unless you're new, in which case, hi, this is one of my favorite trilogies. It's great. And it's also extremely underrated. But either way, the characters in this, I so badly just want to hang out with them. I mean, kind of. There's one character who's legit nice, and she seems like she could be a cool aunt or something, and then the other characters I think would drive me crazy, but I love reading about them, and I just want to be involved with them. You know, I love this series so much. The next question says, the colorful leaves are piling up on the ground. Show us a pile of fall-colored spines. I'm not going to do that because I basically reorganized my entire bookshelf so that the more fall-themed type colors would be present. So you got like the reds and the oranges in frame. You've got this kind of bluish teal green color over here, and like the deeper, I mean, these are more pink, but like the darker reds and stuff like that. So I already organized my whole bookshelves. I don't want to take books off the shelf just to be like, look, the thing that you could see right behind me. Apologies for my laziness. The next question says, fall is the perfect time for some storytelling by the fireside. Share a book wherein somebody is telling a story. Once again, I wanted to go a different route than I have in previous years. For example, Bloodsong is a fantastic, I'm going to tell you my life story kind of story. I'm actually going to go the nonfiction route and talk about memoirs. I know that memoirs, I don't like thinking of them as stories, but these people are telling you about their life. So one of them that I don't have on me because I let my mom borrow it, she still hasn't read it. Geez, Mom, stop being so busy. It would be Trevor Noah's Born a Crime. Fantastic, humorous, also gives you so much insight, not only to his life, but his circumstances where he grew up. And if you don't know, he is basically born a crime because you're not supposed to have white and black people having children together. They're not supposed to be together. It's terrible, but the way he brings humor to the story and the way he shares some elements of his childhood is fantastic. And he also, I think, does such a fantastic job of showing himself as he is, which is a real person. I don't think he tries to sugarcoat himself. I don't think he tries to make himself seem like this perfect person. And he just kind of shows how he grows and learns and how society changes around him or how it doesn't sometimes and how it affects him. It's great. It's a great book. But I would say two that are a little bit more, I don't want to say they're more serious, but perhaps are harder to get through because they don't have that humorous feel to them, would be Know My Name by Chanel Miller and then Educated. Educated follows a girl who grew up in an extremely religious family, and I don't mean religious as in they're just, you know, churchgoers who go to church every weekend and maybe Bible studies or something. They don't trust medicine, they don't trust the government, they don't want there to be basically any documentation about them or the family members, so like the kids, they don't want their kids going to public school because they think school is evil. Definitely suffer a lot of physical injuries as a result of not trusting medicine, doctors, hospitals, and it just kind of talks about her life growing up in that environment. I just find that this woman is incredibly inspiring, and the same can be said for Chanel Miller. This is a sexual assault survivor, and it talks about what she went through, and a lot of it is about her emotional triumph over what was done to her physically, and then how that affected her mentally and emotionally, and how she has learned to live life beyond that. It's one of the most difficult books I've ever not had to read, but that I've ever picked up. And I think it's so important. The next question says, the nights are getting darker. Share a dark, creepy read. So I don't read all that many creepy books. I know I've talked here and there about how The Bone Shard Daughter has some creepy elements to it, but I'm going to go with one that I feel like its purpose is more so to be creepy. And don't be deceived by this cover. Small Favors. I'm covering the sticker. I still need to take it off. But Small Favors looks cheery. It looks like something you'd pick up in the spring to have a good time and be happy. And I'm currently reading this. So I just feel like it's very much on my mind. This is the same author that wrote House of Salt and Sorrows, which is a dark 12 Dancing Princesses retelling. This one, I mean, like I said, I'm still reading it, but I'm so intrigued. I'm so intrigued by what's going on. It follows this small, very, very small town, and it's a very rural, they live kind of off the land. Our main character, her family, they're like beekeepers, and they make honey, and then they sell like honey to other people in the town, and everybody knows each other. And there were some people that had gone out to get supplies to bring back before winter comes, but they were attacked, and our main character's father and brother went to investigate to see if anybody was still alive, and they found some very gruesome, horrifying things that looked like perhaps an animal attack, but didn't seem like any kind of animal they've ever seen or heard of. And then there's also people in the town have been seeing some kind of creatures with these glowing silver eyes. Our main character at one point sees a girl, and she's like, who is that? And she's very like, and then one of my favorite things when books can do this is when I don't want little children to be harmed in stories. That's not what I mean. But when they incorporate little children and their imaginations, but then it's like, wait a sec, are they imagining something, or are they seeing something nobody else is seeing? Because the little sister keeps talking about her imaginary friend, and they're like, she has an imaginary friend. It's whatever, because she's little. But then you're like, is it though? Is it an imaginary friend, or is there something going on? So I have been really enjoying this one. The next question, it says, the days are getting colder. Name a short, heartwarming read that could warm up somebody's cold and rainy day. Right as I'm reading this question, there's some birds chirping outside. So if you hear birds, they're just trying to fit in with the prompt. 6 Crimson Cranes. It follows a girl who there was a curse put on her and her brothers. Her brothers have all turned into cranes. And if she speaks, every word that she speaks will kill one of her brothers. So she's having to try and break this curse without the use of her own voice, of which she is very used to using because she is from a very pampered, privileged life. She kind of always gets her way. She doesn't think too much about what she does and says. And now she's having to be very methodical in what she does and the decisions she makes. It was so cute. It was kind of like watching a family movie. And I just think about my little nieces, and I would love to share this with them at some point. The next one says that fall returns every year. Name an old favorite that you'd like to return to soon. So first off, do a lot of you who also like Store My Archive feel like you're just reading books until the next installment of Store My Archive? Do you ever feel like that? Like, you need a break after Store My Archive because those books are huge, but then when you're done with it, you're like, I mean, I needed a break from that massive epic fantasy, but at the same time, I'm just like waiting to come back to it. So, I mean, in a literal sense, I'm just waiting to return to that because we won't get the 5th book for a little bit, you know. Also, a similar feel. It's been a while since I've shouted at all of you about Fireborn and Flamefall, but I can't wait. I cannot wait for the 3rd book in this series. The next one says that fall is the perfect time for cozy reading night. Share your favorite cozy reading accessories. So I'm just going to mention, I did a video recently where I mentioned this one candle that I've been obsessed with from Target, and it just smells like cookies. The bad thing is when you burn it, you're like, now I want cookies. That's the problem with it. But it's this really beautiful candle from Target. I think they have some smaller sizes too, and they're also really cute. But if you have a Target near you, this candle is so good. It's so good. I'll have it linked if I can find it. If there's still some available, I'll have it linked down below. The last question is to tag some people, so I'll have some people tagged in the description bar down below. But anyway, if you are wanting to do this tag, feel free to consider yourself tagged. It was definitely really fun. I cannot wait for it to actually get cool here, because it's currently not, but it's officially fall, so it should be getting cool very soon. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. I hope you're having a lovely start to the new season, and I'll see you all later. Bye.